Happy Thursday. Thank you for joining us for this webinar. There's no such thing as a tough loan, and I am here with the expert in making tough loans simple, Niraj Kumar. This is our head of underwriting and credit risk. Niraj, you want to say hello to the group?
Hello, everyone. Thank you, Angel. I'm happy to discuss about these difficult scenarios. And like Angel said, there is no loan that is tough for Sunwest, and we can find a solution for every scenario. It makes sense.
Yes. So when we say there's no such thing as a tough loan, there is no such thing as a tough loan when you have the right tools. So take, for example, the horse and buggy. A trip across the country or even just across state lines at one point was a very difficult trip. So it's no surprise that as technology advanced, we stopped using horses and buggies. It's not the most efficient way to get around, right? No longer our standard mode of transportation. So as technology advanced, we got the locomotive. Much faster, more cost-effective, more predictable way to travel from point A to point B. So with the train available, who in their right mind is traveling with a horse and buggy? Same exact idea with origination. So there was a way of doing origination that has worked for years and years and years, but it's slow. It's expensive. It's time consuming, especially when you have those difficult loans. But, just like the locomotive did for transportation, with the right technology, there's a faster, cheaper, more predictable way of originating loans. And we can prove it. We can put our money where our mouth is here. This is our last 100-day report card. So out of all of the loans that were submitted through Sunwest in the past 100 days, 99.8% of those loans met our 8 a.m. the next morning approval promise. So if you haven't heard about that, you submit a loan by 8 p.m. in your local time zone, you'll have your conditional approval by 8 a.m. the next morning. So out of all loans submitted in the past 100 days, 99.8% met that promise. And these aren't just your simple cookie cutter easy loans. So out of all of those loans, over 32% were for borrowers with a FICO score under 620. Close to 50% were for borrowers that had a down payment of 5% or less. And over 50% were first-time homebuyers. So we're still meeting that same turn time, that 8 a.m. approval for borrowers with the more complicated situations. If you think about it, how many loans has your current underwriting team declined because of some of these complicating factors? Or it's taken too long? How much business has that cost you? Our condition review turn time is fast, and it's only getting faster. So 99.5% of our conditions are reviewed in under an hour and a half, just 90 minutes or less. 95% are done in under an hour, and actually 70% are reviewed and signed off in 40 minutes or less. So remember, this is a 24-hour operation. So it doesn't matter, your borrower, gets off work at 10 p.m., they turn in their documentation, submit that condition, and tops hour and a half, that condition is reviewed and cleared. Niraj, what has your experience been as we get faster with the condition review, moving loans through to closing? How has that helped?
That's a great deal for, I think, the loan officer and brokers and everyone. I think especially for the borrowers. I do originate myself, and I can have a peace of mind that I have somebody who's going to review the conditions. I cannot review my own file of conditions, so I relied on the team, and they would come out with the conditions before I wake up, and then I can see the condition, I can see if it is not resolved, why it's not resolved, and you can go into and provide the feedback instantly based on whatever the conversation that you might have with the borrower. Then in less than an hour, you get a bigger response back, right? Nowhere in the industry that you will see that kind of immediate attention or response by any lender. So that includes like difficult files and difficult scenarios and scenarios that needs to be escalated to second level review. And we have senior underwriters standby who can do that. And if it is second level review, which is a small portion of it, if it is needed, that's why we can maintain that these condition 10 times, and like you see, 99% of the conditions are reviewed at the less than 90 minutes.
Yeah, thank you for explaining that. So I'm sure some of you out there, you're looking at that 99.5 and you're like, well, what about the other 0.5, Angel? And exactly to Neeraj's point, there are going to be a small percentage of conditions that do get escalated to a human underwriter. And the reason is we have very advanced technology, AI built throughout all of our systems that's helping us get to these turn times. It's allowing us to be at these turn times. But there are a small number of like first time complex situations, maybe really unique scenarios that the AI hasn't learned yet. So the AI, the beauty of it is it's always learning. It's getting faster and smarter every single day, but inevitably, every once in a while, it's going to run into something it hasn't seen before, and that's when that condition is going to get escalated. It's still very quick turn times, but that's when you see that 0.05. So these are like documents in foreign languages, borrowers who've had, multiple jobs among multiple employers over the past couple of years, your entrepreneurs who also have multiple rental properties. But fair lending, really, if you look at it, means you can provide that same level of service, the same turn times to all of your borrowers, regardless of those more complicated financial situations. And when you're backed by AI that's able to process and review documentation and adhere to a set of rules just as fast with the more complicated situations as it can with the easy ones, the streamlined ones, that's when you get true fair lending.
So there are many scenarios that AI can identify, right? That's like, for example, you have borrowers with declining overtime income, declining commission income, and borrower has received like overtime commission in less than 24 months. And we've seen scenario where there is a gap in between the borrower's changes from hourly to salary and back to hourly. And we have, in any case, we have looked at each borrower scenario and identify what caused that scenario and come up with excellent solutions to find out how we can do those loans. So one example I have would be that borrower who has been receiving a overtime income from last only 1 year, but in between that borrower was a gap, not a gap, that's changed to salary and didn't receive any overtime income. So the overtime history after the salary was 6 months, and prior to that was 6 months, and prior to 12 months back, borrower didn't have overtime income, very minimal overtime income. So we were able to identify that, discussing with the loan officer, borrower, even the employer, to understand the exact scenarios. In normal circumstances, no lender would use that overtime income, but we were able to pin down and try to understand the borrower's employment situation and document and justify that the overtime will continue, and we use that loan, and that loan was closed recently.
That's amazing. And that also speaks to One of the benefits of being such a flat organization, when you have one of those more complicated scenarios like that, where at, a traditional mortgage lender, they're just turning it away. They don't even want to give it a second look. When you're working with Sunwest, you have that your true open door to where you can reach out to our senior leadership. Say, hey, Niraj, this is really what's going on. Can you take a look and help me with this scenario? And as you just heard, that's what happens.
Yeah, another good example would be like we had a loan where borrower was purchasing it, but down payments were in the non-borrowing owner's account. So borrower doesn't have those funds. It belongs to somebody else who's going to be on the title, not on the loan. In normal circumstances, anywhere you go, nobody will use that funds for the down payment or the reserve. But we were able to find a way to use that funds for the cash to close and even for investment property as a reserve, even though that person who has the funds are not on the loan, but just on the contract or the title. So that is never heard of before, and the borrower was blown away he was rejected by different lenders several times, and we closed that loan very quickly.
And I hear that a lot from, borrowers that they've gone everywhere else. They've been rejected everywhere else. No one wants to touch that loan, and Sunwest has found a way to make it work. So all of you originators out there, I challenge you. Bring your most complicated scenarios. No other lender could make it work. Send it to us and see what we can do with it. Because they're making pretty amazing situations happen to get your borrowers in their homes.
Yeah, in addition to DU, DU or LPA, right? We do a lot of manual underwriting, right? And our manual underwriting, the philosophy is very, very borrower specific and mainly trying to understand the circumstances and extenuating circumstance and any compensating factors. Many lenders won't do a manual underwriting if a borrower has any late collection in the last 12 months, 24 months. But we looked at it very differently. We looked at overall profile of the borrower, credit profile, and we have done manual underwriting on those low FICOs, 580, 570, 550, and those are the best performing loans that we have in the system. Even though those are low FICOs and we do manual underwriting, that we were able to give the borrowers another chance for the home ownership.
Yeah, so try it. Give your loans, let Sunwest give them a second look and see if it's something that we can't get done for your borrowers and get them into that dream of home ownership. But again, you're as productive as the tools that you use. So don't spend your time, spinning your wheels, trying to figure out how you can make a deal work. Send it into Sunwest and let us take a look and see how we can get that borrower in their home. And really, what does that mean for you? You get to grow your business. You need to be able to support the borrowers that other originators can't. Or if they do, they're taking a long time or they're charging more. It's not a great experience. That's not fair lending. It's not optimizing your potential volume either. How much more money could you be making if you could support all of these types of clients? Low credit score, no credit score, low down payment, DSCR, bank statements. All of these types of clients with the same experience and efficiency as anyone else. So, the other commonly kind of scary thing about these more complicated loans is, just being worried until they close that something's going to happen, they're going to fall apart. And at Sunwest, we do a thorough underwrite up front. So you don't have to worry about that fallout. So when I talk about 8 a.m. approvals, you submit your loan by 8 p.m. your time. Loan is underwritten. You have your conditional approval by 8 a.m. the next morning. That's not just for your true loans with the properties. That's your TBDs, your pre-approvals as well. So your pre-approvals from Sunwest are already underwritten. You have your conditional approval. And once your borrower turns in their conditions, then it turns into what we call a true approval. So the TRU, it stands for thoroughly reviewed and underwritten. It means we're completely done with the borrower. They've been underwritten, they've provided all the documentation that we need, they get a true approval letter that actually allows them to make offers that can compete with cash offers, because they can make an offer without a financing contingency. They've already been approved.
Yes. So true approval, Sunwest is standing behind those approvals, conditions, right? Even if something that come out after we approval, we are looking at it and always trying to find a way to make it work like any other loan, to make sure that the loan meets the agency guideline. So we have given true approvals to the loans with multiple employers, borrowers with gaps, and borrowers with variable incomes with multiple jobs, and even the borrowers like traveling nurse or like with a contract position. So it's not like you're expecting a true approval from a salary borrower or typical self-employed borrowers. We do look at every borrower, and if the income is varying, employment is multiple jobs, we will verify all the required information, including the variable hours, how the contract is going to renew, what is the history, and if the job gap is there, and we'll address it. We had a loan where we issued a true approval a month ago where the prior employment was from, I think, 16 to 2018, and there's a gap till 2021. Laura needs to use the overtime income. He started working 2021, so we were able to document by the conversation with the employer and looking at the loan file, and we issued true approval, and we stand behind those true approvals. Once you are reviewed and once your income is finalized, you don't need to worry about that at all. The borrower's employment, income, everything is verified and good to go.
Yeah, so those true approvals, those are a big deal for your borrowers that are out shopping. They're a big deal to your referral partners and to you as the originator. And the road to the true approval for you as the originator is just as simple as any other thing loan here at Sunwest. So we really try to keep as much off of our originator's plate as possible. So again, you guys can focus on bringing in more business, growing your business, building relationships. So all you need to do is get the application in, or your borrower applies online. You run credit, upload your documents. Income asset is the most critical for an underwriting decision. The rest we can get later. Make sure e-consent's done and you submit. Once you submit, you're on to the next thing. Sunwest is going to take it from there. So you submit, and initial disclosures are prepared and sent. Any third-party services that are going to be required get ordered. So all your setup tasks are completed, and that's all done in under an hour. And your file is direct to underwriting. Again, TBDs, loans, direct to underwriting. Even as a part of that setup process, we can do an early check for a PIW. So borrower's not under contract, doesn't trigger a TRID, but we can just look at the scenario if they have a property in mind, or properties in mind, and see if they were to get under contract on that property, could we grant a property inspection waiver? And if so, then they know going into it, they can make an offer without an appraisal contingency if they'd like. There's not going to be an appraisal condition on the file. So in under an hour, files direct to underwriting. By the next morning, you have your conditional approval. That's when your loan coordinator jumps in. Their whole job is collecting conditions. They're really good at it. They're going to work with the borrower on the needs list to get any documentation your borrower needs to turn in. They're following up on third-party conditions, coordinating appointments. As conditions come in, as we talked about, they're reviewed within an hour. And then that pre-approval turns into a true approval. So you don't have to worry about that fallout. So one of our favorite tools here at Sunwest is called Morgan. And well, you guys are viewing this, so you've at least used Morgan once because you're watching this in Morgan right now. So definitely after our call, try Morgan out, ask it some questions. But Morgan is an awesome tool when you do have those more complicated scenarios. It's like having a DU underwriter right next to you 24/7. You can ask Morgan anything. If your loan's with Sunwest, she can actually do things on your loans. And again, that's 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. The AI in Morgan, it's always learning. So if you were to ask Morgan a question that the AI hasn't learned yet, you're never going to get the like, well, sorry, I don't know that one that you get from other virtual assistants. Morgan's going to give you an ETA. And you don't have to hang out there. You can move on with your life, put your phone down, close out your browser window. Morgan will send you a text and an email when that answer is available. So you can just click the link. You're right back in the conversation with your answer. And it's even better, I would say, than having a DU underwriter next to you because Sunwest backs anything Morgan tells you. So you're going to have a hard time finding an underwriter that will say, yep, I will back 100%. I will warrant any answer I give you. But that's Sunwest's promise with Morgan. So send those scenarios, those complicated scenarios into Morgan, say, hey, here's what's going on, and you'll be able to get an answer. So here's just an example of what it might look like. Here I attached a couple years of tax returns. I said, hey, can you calculate this income? And Morgan sent me back this whole big paragraph, so I'll break it down. She told me the borrower's income. She told me how much of that income was usable, important. And she also told me which documents would be required to verify the income. Now, the second paragraph, I thought it was important on this example to blow the whole thing up here, because the first paragraph, she gave me what I asked for. She gave me the income calculation. That's what I asked her for. But if you notice in the second paragraph, she actually reviewed these tax returns the same way an underwriter would, because she said, hey, there's an additional concern here. Basically, it says the borrower is employed by their spouse's company. So to use the income from a family-owned business, we're going to need these additional documents. So she didn't just do the calculation that I asked. She set me and my borrower up for success because I can now set the appropriate expectation with my borrower. Other benefit of having Morgan do the income calculation, well, one, you save yourself that time, and two, again, it's backed by Sunwest. You know, if you were to do your income calculation and it gets to underwriting and turns out you made a mistake, you're human, we all make them, we're going to use that corrected income calculation. But if you used Morgan to do the income calculation and you're sending your loan to Sunwest, if for whatever reason, we don't deal with it often, but if she made a mistake, overstated the income, when it got to underwriting, we would be able to go back and see what Morgan told you, and we will use that income calculation. So again, once we are done with this call, feel free to send any scenarios to Morgan, pick her brain, ask her questions.
There's so many. I think I've shared a couple and several, and then there are many. It's like you come into like a surprise situation where property needs repairs, and we had a scenario where the appraiser require some type of repairs and borrower doesn't have any funds and fix roof repair, we were able to work it out with the appraiser, like get a contractor and able to escrow it and so that we don't delay the closing. That's after pre-approval and true approval. And also, I think there are many, I hear many in the industry is that borrowers with the prior forbearance, when they sell the property, many are still requiring pre-mortgage payments after the property was sold, which doesn't make sense. And we do have a clear policy that we would allow rental payment history and check if the property is sold after the forbearance. And there's many loans that are done with the, like I said, 85 code with the charge of collections, and as long as we have an explanation what makes sense and what's truly happening to the borrower, then we can look at it as a isolated incident and issue the pre-approval, true approval. If your borrower has a low FICO, and you better should have a true approval so that nobody can later on change it or reject it with any other lender, if depending on the underwriter's mood and who gets the loan. Here at Sunwest, you don't need to worry about who the underwriter is, who gets the loan, as long as Morgan has provided you the answer, and that's your answer. That's we are going to back up on.
Yeah, thanks for bringing that up. That's another great point. You know, a lot of times as originators, you're used to kind of walking on eggshells, right, around your underwriter. You know, you want to catch them on a good day to ask your questions, and you don't have to worry about that at Sunwest because it's AI, and AI doesn't have a bad day. So, you know, it's got all of the rules programmed into it. You're going to get the same fair answer. You don't have to worry about, you know, you can even vent to Morgan. You can say whatever you want. Morgan will still, if you ask her if you love her, if she loves you, she'll tell you she loves you. So no matter what, Morgan always loves you. You don't have to worry about that relationship there. All right. Well, with that, please let us know if you have any questions right here in Morgan, in that field below. Go ahead and type in any questions that you have. All of these tools, resources, processes that we're talking about, this is the same for both our retail and for our wholesale partners. So if you would like to join us in either channel or you have more questions, just send your questions to Morgan. If you want to talk to someone live on the phone, just also let Morgan know and we will be in touch with you. So thanks so much for joining, everyone, and thank you, Niraj, for joining the call. Always
Thanks, everyone. Have a nice day. Thank you.